When you truly seek the kingdom of God first, your entire life undergoes a fundamental realignment. Most people live life with a focus on accumulation, accumulating wealth, recognition, power, and comfort. But when you shift your mindset and start seeking the kingdom first, you don't operate out of desperation anymore. You operate from alignment. That's where the real transformation begins. Realignment starts at the heart level. Your values begin to change. You no longer prioritize what the world celebrates. You prioritize what heaven celebrates. You start asking different questions like, is this pleasing to God? Does this serve a kingdom purpose? Am I moving closer to His will or drifting from it? And the beauty is, when your heart changes, your actions follow. You become more intentional with your time, your words, and your relationships. Next comes your mind. When you're focused on the kingdom, you no longer think with a scarcity mindset. You stop asking, will there be enough, and start declaring, God is my source. This mental shift is powerful. You begin to see opportunities instead of obstacles, purpose instead of problems, and lessons instead of losses. You adopt a mentality of stewardship over ownership. You realize you're not here to cling to things, but to manage them according to divine instruction. This realignment continues into your relationships. When you seek the kingdom, you're no longer drawn to toxic connections, shallow interactions, or manipulative alliances. You start choosing friends, partners, and mentors who reflect kingdom values, truth, integrity, service, and vision. You attract people who call you higher, not those who keep you stuck. You begin to pour into others with joy because your validation no longer comes from people. It comes from your divine assignment. Your decisions begin to look different too. You don't rush ahead in fear or impatience. You wait on God's timing, trusting that obedience is better than speed. This is where peace begins to take root. You're no longer frantically hustling to make things happen. Instead, you're moving in rhythm with God. When you live by His principles, you reap supernatural results. Results that can't be explained by talent or timing alone. Finances are another area that undergoes a major shift. Seeking the kingdom first doesn't mean money becomes unimportant. It means it's no longer your master. You stop making decisions solely based on profit and begin investing in purpose. You become generous not because you're wealthy, but because you're kingdom-minded. And ironically, this generosity often leads to greater wealth because God can trust you with more when He sees you're faithful with little. Even your purpose becomes clearer. So many people wander through life confused about their calling, trying to find themselves in all the wrong places. But when you seek the kingdom, you begin to understand that your purpose is not something you create. It's something you uncover. It's already been placed in you. And the more you draw near to the King, the more the kingdom inside you begins to shine. Ultimately, seeking the kingdom first doesn't take away from your life. It adds to it. Peace increases. Wisdom multiplies. Doors open. Relationships flourish. And yes, success follows. Not because you chased it, but because you were faithful to pursue the source of all good things. That's what real realignment looks like. You're not just living, you're living on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. When you begin to truly seek the kingdom of God first, everything in your life begins to shift. Not just spiritually, but mentally, emotionally, financially, and relationally. The challenge many face is not that they don't want what God has for them, but they chase the things of this world, hoping to add the kingdom to it. When in truth, the kingdom is the root and the world is the fruit. When you seek the kingdom first, the fruit will follow. You won't need to chase money, approval, or purpose. Those things will chase you when you're aligned with divine order. The kingdom of God is not about a place, it's about a position. It's about understanding that you were born not just to live, but to rule. With humility, with faith, with excellence. When you make God's kingdom your focus, He makes your life his priority. Too many people want to be in control without coming under the authority of the one who created control. That's not how it works. God's way works when you work God's way. Seeking the kingdom first is not an act of religious performance. It's a mindset and a lifestyle. It means you make decisions with heaven's agenda in mind. You view your relationships, your time, your money, and your business through the lens of divine purpose. That means you don't cut corners just to win faster. You understand that favor is better than finances, and grace opens more doors than grinding ever could. People often say, I'll serve God once I've made it. But that's not the kingdom. The kingdom says, I'll serve God and he will make me. We live in a world that teaches hustle, but the kingdom teaches harvest. You don't plant a seed and then scream at it to grow. You cultivate it, trust the process, and stay consistent. That's what seeking the kingdom looks like: planting, trusting, obeying, and allowing God to bring the increase. And when you do that, when you truly God's kingdom first, clarity comes, fear loses its grip, confusion has no space to settle. You no longer run in circles trying to make things happen on your own. Instead, you walk with divine confidence knowing that heaven is backing you. You speak differently, you think higher, you love deeper, your priorities realign, your vision expands, and your impact multiplies. The truth is, the kingdom of God is the only system that never fails. Economies will shift, trends will fade, people will come and go. But the principles of God's kingdom are eternal. And the moment you align with it, you're stepping into something unshakable. You're no longer trying to build a life alone. You're building a life with the architect of everything. So don't just chase success. Seek the kingdom. Don't just pray for increase. Position yourself in obedience. Don't wait for clarity. Act in faith. The world says, get more to become more. But the kingdom says, become more and you'll receive more. That's the shift. That's the difference. That's the power of putting first things first. When we hear the word kingdom, it's easy to imagine a physical place, a far-off realm with golden streets and gates of pearl. And while that imagery may be comforting or even biblical in part, it only scratches the surface of what the kingdom of God really is. The kingdom is not just a place you go to after life. It's a position you live from in this life. It's not merely heaven someday. It's authority, and when you grasp that truth, your life will never be the same. The kingdom of God is about rulership, not residency. It's about living under the rule of a king while exercising the authority he's entrusted to you. Think of it like this: a citizen of a nation doesn't have to physically be in the capital city to operate under the laws, rights, and protections of that government. In the same way, you don't need to arrive somewhere spiritually to begin living in kingdom authority. The moment you submit to the king, you gain access to kingdom resources. Position speaks of identity. When you realize that the kingdom is a position, you stop striving to become something and start walking in who you already are. You're not working for approval. You're working from approval. You're not hoping for power. You're moving in the power that's already been delegated to you. That means you can pray with boldness, speak with clarity, and lead with confidence. Not because of who you are in the flesh, but because of who you are in the kingdom. This understanding also changes how you respond to opposition. When you see the kingdom as a place, you might believe that peace, victory, or breakthrough are things you have to wait for. But when you understand it's a position, you recognize that victory is already yours. You just need to walk in it. Challenges don't mean God is absent. They often confirm that you're standing in a place of spiritual authority. You don't have to beg for power. You're already positioned to use it. Living from kingdom position also transforms your everyday decisions. You no longer think like a victim of circumstance. You begin to think like a royal with responsibility. You don't just react to life. You respond with purpose. You don't just follow culture, you shape it. You're no longer blown around by fear, temptation, or insecurity because your identity is anchored in something eternal. That's the power of understanding your kingdom position. And this position is not earned, it's received. It's a gift that comes through surrender. The world says, climb the ladder, compete, compare, outperform. But the kingdom says, humble yourself, obey, and believe. The moment you try to earn what's already been given, you're stepping out of position. That's why people burn out trying to be enough. But in the kingdom, your position is secured not by your effort, but by your alignment with the King. Another critical point, your position in the kingdom comes with responsibility. It's not about sitting on a throne doing nothing. It's about stewarding influence, managing resources, and advancing the will of God on earth. You've been positioned to bring heaven's reality into earthly situations. That means when you walk into your job, your home, your community, you carry the kingdom with you. Peace, wisdom, healing, provision. Those things flow through you because you're not just a believer, you're a kingdom ambassador. This kingdom position also unifies your life. It brings alignment between your faith and your function, your calling and your career, your spirit and your strategy. You stop compartmentalizing God to Sundays or prayer time. You recognize He's involved in your business meetings, your parenting, your planning, your investments, your relationships. Every part of life becomes an opportunity to reflect the King you represent. Ultimately, when you understand the kingdom is a position, not just a place, you stop looking for escape and start walking in dominion. You don't live for a distant promise. You live from a present reality. The kingdom isn't something you enter into after death. It's something you manifest while you're alive. That's the position you've been given. And when you take your place in it, everything around you begins to align with the authority you carry. One of the most liberating truths you can embrace in life is that God's favor and grace will take you further than all your striving, hustling, or human effort ever could. We live in a world that glorifies the grind. Work longer, push harder, sacrifice everything, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get ahead. But the kingdom operates differently. While effort has its place, it's not effort that brings divine results, it's favor. And favor is not earned, it's given. Grace and favor are not just religious words. They are supernatural accelerators. Grace is God doing for you what you could never do for yourself. Favor is God opening doors for you that no man can shut. And when you truly begin to live under God's grace and seek His favor, you find that things begin to happen in your life that you couldn't have manufactured even with perfect planning or endless hours of hard work. Now, this doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. Grace isn't a license for laziness. It's a power source that elevates your effort. You still sow, but grace multiplies the harvest. You still work, but favor brings the right connections, the right timing, and the right positioning. That's why two people can be doing the exact same thing, and one skyrockets while the other struggles, because one is relying on grind and the other is relying on grace. Human effort is limited. No matter how skilled, smart, or disciplined you are, you will hit a wall eventually. There will be things you can't control, delays, setbacks, betrayals, closed doors. That's where grace steps in. Grace is what keeps you standing when life tries to knock you down. Grace is what carries you through seasons where your strength would have failed. And favor is what causes you to rise in moments when you didn't even feel qualified to be in the room. People often try to measure success by how much they've earned, accomplished, or accumulated. But true kingdom success is measured by how aligned you are with God's will and how surrendered you are to His ways. When you're walking in grace and favor, you stop competing with others because you understand your lane is already blessed. You stop striving to be seen because you know the right people will recognize you at the right time through divine orchestration, not self-promotion. There's a story behind every person walking in great impact and peace. And that story almost always includes a moment when they stopped relying on themselves and started trusting in the grace of God. It's a surrender that leads to supernatural success. Because when God's hand is on something, it moves differently, it multiplies faster, it lasts longer, it draws resources, opportunities, and support from places you didn't even expect. Even in your weaknesses, God's grace is sufficient. That's why you don't have to wait to be perfect to be powerful. His power is made perfect in your weakness, not in your performance. That means you can move forward even with doubts. You can start even when you feel unqualified. Grace covers the gaps between who you are and who you're called to be. And favor will often make people wonder how you got where you are. That's because favor doesn't follow logic, it follows obedience. You might not have the most credentials, the most connections, or the most resources, but when God breathes on what you're doing, that breath carries more weight than anything you could build with your own two hands. Grace brings rest into your rhythm. You don't have to grind yourself into the ground trying to prove your worth. You don't have to manipulate outcomes or force doors to open. You work diligently, yes, but from a place of peace, not pressure, because you know the outcome is in God's hands and His favor surrounds you like a shield. Ultimately, when you learn to trust in God's favor and grace above your own effort, your life becomes a testimony. Not a story of how hard you worked, but how faithful God was. Not a monument to your hustle, but a mirror that reflects His goodness. And that kind of life doesn't just inspire, it multiplies. Because favor and grace don't just lift you, they overflow into everything and everyone around you. There's a common misconception in the world today, especially in driven, success-oriented cultures, the idea that once you make it, once you've built your empire, grown your brand, or achieved financial independence, then you'll start giving God your time, your heart, or your attention. People say things like, once I get to a certain level, then I'll serve. Or, when life slows down, I'll focus on God. But that's not the order of the kingdom. In fact, that's completely backward. In God's kingdom, serving Him comes first, and success follows that obedience. True success doesn't come from striving for greatness and then offering God the leftovers. It comes from prioritizing God, surrendering your will, and walking in alignment with His purpose. When you serve God first, you set yourself up for sustainable, purpose-driven success, not just temporary achievement. Serving God isn't about religious performance or checking off spiritual boxes. It's about aligning your life, your gifts, your decisions, and your time with His will. When you do that, you invite God to take the lead role in your journey. You shift from being the one trying to control the outcomes to being the one who trusts the author of the outcomes. And that changes everything. Many people chase success their entire lives only to feel empty once they reach it. That's because success without purpose is just noise. It impresses the world but doesn't fulfill the soul. Serving God gives your success depth. It gives it eternal weight. You're not just building something impressive, you're building something meaningful, something that impacts lives, and something that pleases the one who gave you life in the first place. When you serve God first, success is no longer a guessing game. You don't have to constantly pivot, panic, or question your path. You have a divine guide. You may still face obstacles, but you'll face them with clarity and peace, knowing you're moving in step with something bigger than you. That's the advantage of serving first. You're walking in divine timing, not human timing. And here's what's beautiful. God isn't asking you to serve Him after you become strong, skilled, or successful. He's asking you to serve Him now. With what you have, right where you are. You don't have to wait until you're wealthy, famous, or influential to start honoring him. In fact, those who learn to serve him in obscurity are often the ones he promotes to influence. Why? Because their character has been shaped by submission, not ego. They can be trusted with more because they started with the right foundation. The Bible is full of people who served God before they saw success. David served his father and cared for sheep before he became king. Joseph served in prison before he was promoted to the palace. Jesus himself came to serve, not to be served. These examples aren't random, they're patterns. They show us that the pathway to true kingdom success always starts with serving. Serving also keeps you grounded. It keeps your heart in the right place when success does come. You're less likely to be swayed by pride, competition, or distraction because your identity isn't built on your accomplishments, it's built on your obedience. And that's unshakable. When storms come, markets shift, or seasons change, you remain steady because your success wasn't built on sand, it was built on a surrendered life. And don't confuse serving with settling. Serving God doesn't mean thinking small or living in lack. In fact, serving God opens the door to more than you could ever ask or imagine. But you're not chasing more as your master. You're following the master who can bring the right kind of more. Success becomes a byproduct of your surrender, not the goal of your grind. So if you want to see real breakthrough, don't wait for everything to align before you start serving. Start now. Serve where you are. Offer your skills, your heart, your time, your faith, and watch what happens when you put God's agenda above your own. Because in the kingdom, it's not success that unlocks service, it's service that unlocks success. And once you get that in the right order, the trajectory of your life begins to change. One of the most powerful, underestimated benefits of seeking God and his kingdom first is the clarity and confidence that flow from spiritual alignment. In a world filled with noise, distractions, opinions, and uncertainty, most people are desperately searching for direction. They chase after advice, trends, strategies, and motivational messages, hoping something will click. But divine clarity doesn't come from external noise. It comes from internal alignment with God. When your heart, mind, and purpose are aligned with God, you begin to see differently. Decisions that once felt confusing become clear. Paths that once seemed hidden start to open. The fog of indecision lifts, not because every answer is instantly handed to you, but because you've positioned yourself under the one who sees the end from the beginning. That's the power of divine alignment. It grants you access to supernatural perspective. God is not the author of confusion. He is a God of order, purpose, and precision. When your life is submitted to him, you begin to operate with his wisdom, not just human logic. You no longer lean on your own understanding. You acknowledge him in all your ways, and he directs your path. That direction brings peace. You don't have to anxiously second guess every step. You begin to trust that your steps are ordered, even when the destination isn't fully visible yet. Clarity isn't just about knowing what to do. It's about knowing who you are. So many people are paralyzed in life because they don't have a clear sense of identity. They wonder if they're good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. But when you're aligned with God, you're reminded that your identity is not defined by your resume, past, or status. It's rooted in who he says you are. That clarity about your identity breeds confidence. Confidence in the kingdom doesn't look like arrogance. It's not loud or boastful. It's quiet assurance. It's walking into a room not needing to prove yourself because you already know who's backing you. It's making bold moves without needing the validation of others. It's speaking truth even when it's unpopular. This kind of confidence doesn't come from personality. It comes from presence. The presence of God in your life becomes your foundation, your anchor, and your source of courage. And this confidence affects every area of your life. In your relationships, you stop tolerating dysfunction because you know your worth. In your business or career, you stop chasing opportunities out of fear and start choosing ones that align with your values. In your goals, you stop striving just to achieve and start building from a place of purpose. Why? Because you're no longer operating in confusion. You're walking in clarity. Alignment with God also simplifies your decisions. When you're seeking Him first, you filter everything through His Word, His character, and His voice. You don't need to constantly reinvent yourself or jump from one idea to the next, hoping something works. You can build with intention and move with consistency because you know what you're building is rooted in something unshakable. It's important to understand that clarity doesn't always mean comfort. Sometimes God gives you clarity to do something difficult, like walking away from a relationship, turning down a lucrative deal, or starting over from scratch. But when you're aligned, you trust that obedience will always lead to the best outcome, even if it doesn't look like it right away. That's where true confidence is born, not in the absence of risk, but in the presence of divine assurance. There's a deep rest that comes with clarity and confidence. You stop running yourself into the ground trying to keep up with everyone else. You stop trying to force things that were never meant for you. You stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. And in that place of alignment, God can do more through your surrendered life than you could ever accomplish through ambition alone. When your spirit is aligned with God, you begin to think higher, speak bolder, love deeper, and live freer. You're no longer driven by fear, confusion, or pressure. Instead, you're guided by vision, faith, and divine confidence. And that makes you unstoppable, not because of who you are alone, but because of who you're aligned with. Choosing to seek the kingdom of God first is the most powerful decision you can make. It unlocks divine order, releases supernatural provision, and positions you to live with unstoppable clarity, purpose, and peace. The world may offer you success, but only the kingdom can give you significance. So seek the kingdom first and let everything else find you.